you all for attending our All Candidates Meet and Greet and Question and Answer as hosted by the Times. I'm Wendy Gabrek, and as you can see, this event is being filmed by Rogers TV, local channel 65. The broadcast will air starting October the 10th. There will also be postings to the Rogers YouTube channel under Candidates, Meetings, and Debates. You can find a link to the show at rogerstv.com. I would like to start by introducing our candidates for the riding of Simcoe-Grey and also speaking of today's format. As I call your name, could you please come to the front and take a seat? With us here today is our incumbent MP, Dr. Kellie Leitch of the Conservative Party. Mike MacEachern of the Liberal Party. David Matthews, representing the NDP. And rounding out our panel is JoAnne Fleming, Federal Green Party candidate. Each of the candidates will have 5 minutes timed to introduce themselves and their party platform, and how their party's policies and procedures, should they be elected to Parliament, affect the residents of Simcoe-Grey. Following the introductions, the candidates will receive questions from the floor. Questions should be concise and directed to a specific candidate or candidates. Candidate responses will be timed and must not exceed 2 minutes in length. The last question of the day will be accepted at 3 p.m. Following the question and answer period, candidates will remain on hand to speak with their constituents one-on-one at their individual information booths. We have the room until 4 o'clock. Please think of what you'd like to ask your candidates at this point. Duplications of questions, inappropriate comments, and bullying will not be tolerated. Unruly audience members will be asked to leave. I will serve as both timekeeper and moderator during this meet and greet. Any issues of concern should be directed to me directly. Throughout this program, the kitchen will be open. Coffee and cold drinks and snacks are available for purchase, courtesy of Crema of Beaton. Thanks, Crema. Thanks, Sabina. And now on with the program. The 2015 Canadian federal election will be held on October the 19th to elect members to the House of Commons of the 42nd Parliament of Canada. With an 11-week campaign period, the longest campaign in modern Canadian history, there's been a lot of pressure on our candidates to meet with voters and attend events, hosted almost daily throughout our massive riding. For those reasons and more, I am very grateful to have 4 of our candidates here with us today. I thank you. Perhaps some of you know we will already be voting for and have formulated opinions of the party or of the person, or perhaps today's meeting will help you make that decision. Let's now meet our 4 candidates vying for one of the 338 seats in the House of Commons. By random draw, as selected by the candidates themselves, it is my pleasure to introduce to you first, Mr. David Matthews.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Beaton for having us here. I think this is one of the purest forms of the democratic process. It gives you, the people electing us, the chance to question us. I've lived in this riding for 20 years. My family has lived in this riding for over 100 years. I know the riding, I know the people. I have experience in affordable housing. I worked in that particular area for over 10 years. I also worked in an area in which a group of people raised funds so that kids from low-income families could participate in athletics. I was also one of the founding members of OAK, which is the Organization for Quality Education, to improve the education in Ontario. I wasn't going to run in the federal elections, and I was asked to, and when I really looked at what is at stake in this country, I decided that I wanted my country back. I have found that over the last 20 years, actually, even with the Liberals in power and the Conservatives, they have slowly and gradually chipped away at our social programs, and that includes our health care, which it took the NDP party, or the former CCF party, 7 years to actually get the federal government to register and think that it was a good idea and that all Canadians need free health. And we have seen, in particularly over the last couple of years, this program being cut. Mr. Harper has already stated that he's not going to, or he's cut $36 billion from the budget for health care, and that will take in effect in 2 years. $36 billion is going to mean that you're going to see more privatization of health care, which seniors cannot afford. The Liberal government says we're all for health care, and yet, and I know this is going to be contested, and I don't generally read things to the public, but this comes from a writer from the Toronto Sun, which is a highly conservative newspaper, and he states in this, because he saw their costing document, and this is the thing, I haven't seen it, and I find it very amusing. His name is Tom Parkin. Now he has looked over the Liberal costing party for their program, and in it he states that there is nowhere in this document where it mentions health care. Also, there's nothing in it for child care, affordable housing, and a number of other things, which leads me to believe, because the Liberals are running a deficit, and in 3 years they say it's going to be, they're going to have a balanced budget, they're going to be cutting those areas because they're not telling the truth. We've already seen Justin Trudeau flip-flop when he said a month ago that he was going to give the First Nations $2.6 billion for education, for housing, and a whole bunch of other things. And in his document, he says he's now only going to give them $1.6 billion. You know, so he's not even elected and he's broken a promise. You know, and this is a Liberal thing. They seem to do that. For the last 6 elections between Liberals and Conservatives, they've always promised that they are going to put money into affordable housing. And yet they have not put 1 cent in. And that's a promise that they've always broken. You know, we have seniors who are living in rat holes because they can't afford nice, comfortable, affordable housing. And they don't care. They break that promises. We're going to invest in it. We're going to get seniors out of these rat holes and put them into good, clean, affordable housing. You know, that is our policy. That has always been the NDP's policy. We are a party that wants to fight poverty. Poverty, which neither of these other 2 parties, they very seldom ever use that word. I think they've come to the conclusion that poverty is politically incorrect. And how many people here have heard that word? You know, politically, it's incorrect to use the word poverty. Poverty is a curse on our economy. These parties lead you to believe that it's corporations that make the jobs. They've given billions of dollars to corporations to create jobs, and they've created a whole bunch of invisible jobs. The Conservatives, we've lost more jobs under their reign than we had before they started. You know, where are these jobs that they claim they've created? They haven't created them. You know, Canadians are struggling harder and harder and harder to exist now. They live paycheck to paycheck. You know, and we're a party that's going to stop that. And I think it takes pretty big guts for the first time in Canadian history for a federal leader to say that he is no longer going to give corporations our tax money. He is no longer going to allow corporations to feed on the taxpayers' money to make invisible jobs and to pay their expenses to move out of Canada. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to get aggressive with the moderating today, just to keep it fair and flowing. Our second speaker today is Dr. Kellie Leitch of the Conservatives.
And a little short. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Wendy and Rogers, for covering this, the town of Eaton for having us here. It's been an honor and a privilege to be your Member of Parliament for the last 4 years. As your voice in Ottawa, I'm proud to represent the values of this riding both in the House of Commons and at the Cabinet table as the Minister of Labour and the Minister of Status of Women. I grew up at a dinner table where certain values were espoused. That you should be fiscally responsible. That you should make sure your community is safe. And when you have a little bit of extra money in your pocket, you make sure that those that are a little more disadvantaged than you, usually through no fault of their own, because of a disability or otherwise, that we take care of them. And I'm proud to be part of a government that does exactly that. Now in this election, you'll be choosing who has the experience today to manage a strong economy going forward, keeping our economy strong, and also keeping our country safe. As your Conservative representative, I'll work to ensure that you have more of your hard-earned money back in your pocket. So whether that be our augmentation of the universal child care benefit for families, which we double for parents that have a child under 6, or the new one created for a child between the ages of 7 and 17, or whether that be as a senior, augmenting the tax-free savings account, or creating the new single seniors tax credit so that you have fiscal security and flexibility. These are the things we're focused on. And it's that plan, a plan that Jim Flaherty and Prime Minister Harper put in place in the last number of years, that has created the lowest federal tax burden in the last 50 years in Canada for you as Canadians. Now, in addition to that, it's also created a strong economy for job creation. And since the downturn in 2009, over 1.2 million new jobs, the majority of them full-time, the majority of them well-paying jobs, is what has been created since 2009. And the Prime Minister, most recently in this election, has made a commitment of another 1.3 million new jobs by 2020. A strong fiscal record and one we plan to build on. Now, our government also knows that our national security isn't something to be taken lightly. Let me be clear. The Conservative Party is the only party that thinks ISIS is worth fighting. Our Conservative government has taken action to fight those who pose a threat and those who seek to destroy everything that we do hold dear. Make no mistake, we will work to ensure that all Canadians are safe both here at home and also abroad, while we continue to support our Canadian Armed Forces with an augmented budget, now at $20 billion, so that they can do the job that they do so well in protecting our democracy. Now, this election is about the economy. There will be turbulent times in global markets, and Canada is not immune to the impacts and the downturns in China and Europe. Now, that being said, we have emerged with a budgetary surplus. In fact, an additional $1.9 billion announced just 2 weeks ago, the strongest economy in the G7, and one of the best job creation records in the developed world. There is a clear choice here. A Conservative government that has lowered your taxes, augmented benefits, and brought us to a balanced budget while creating jobs, versus the plan that Mr. Trudeau has of new deficits and tax increases, or tax increases by the NDP that we know kill jobs. I know where my position is on this. I am part of the team about lowering your taxes, augmenting your benefits, and making sure you have money back in your pockets. I look forward to the questions this afternoon. If you have any for myself, I'd be delighted to take them, and I look forward to hearing from the other candidates. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leitch. Our third speaker this afternoon is Mike MacEachern of the Liberal Party.
Thanks very much. Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to hear from all the candidates today. I was drawn to participate in this election because I believe in hope and hard work. I believe that better is possible, and I believe that every citizen should be given a fair shot to succeed, and that no citizen should be left behind. We were asked to speak today about how our party platform benefits Simcoe-Grey and the New Tecumseth residents in specific. And we have a lot of platform pieces, and here are a few that I think are important to our residents. We're about protecting the environment. We want to unmuzzle government scientists and allow the data to be used in appropriate decision-making. We want to restore robust environmental assessments and provide opportunity for the public to have meaningful, contribution to those assessments, and the communities as well having a meaningful opportunity to participate. The environmental assessment process has been gutted. For example, we look to the Navigable Waters Act, where the government moved from protecting millions of rivers to only protecting about 63, from protecting 40,000 lakes to protecting less than 100. We look to seniors' income, and despite the false claims being made by the Conservative government, the Liberal government is not going to touch income splitting for pensioners. We would roll back the age for the collection of old age security and the guaranteed income supplement from the artificially high 67 back to 65, putting $13,000 in the pockets of the seniors that need it most, and we'd work with the provinces to enhance CPP. When we talk about affordable housing, the latest statistics I'm aware of in Simcoe County, there are 2,800 households looking for affordable housing. 800 of these are families, and 1,000 of these are seniors. And believe it or not, seniors are waiting on average 4.6 years for a spot. The problem is growing, but our federal government has decided to walk away, only committing to honoring existing agreements. The Liberal government would invest in the full spectrum of housing needs, including a renewed federal government role in additional affordable housing, with sustained new funding, housing, and a level of cooperation with provinces and territories. Infrastructure investment is important. All of our communities require the money to go into hospitals, schools, recreation facilities, roads, bridges, and we need a partner in the federal government. Why? Because municipalities have come to the federal government and asked for that support. They understand, and the Liberals have listened to municipal leaders and said, listen, we need to double the investment in infrastructure. Not only does it create or raise revenues for government, it also helps the local economy. It builds jobs and allows for investment locally. And improved infrastructure actually helps the private sector. It makes them more productive and more competitive, and it leads to private sector investment. We need to support our veterans, and and the Liberals believe we have an obligation to veterans. No veteran should have to fight its government for the support and compensation they have earned. For middle class and child care benefits, we're committed to reducing middle income tax and establishing a Canada Child Benefit, which will be targeted to those who need it most. And this will, in fact, raise 315,000 kids out of poverty. In terms of health services, we think the federal government needs to take more of a leadership role. We've heard about the ongoing cuts to health care, and I think that the Liberal government would be interested in signing another health accord with the provinces and working with them to provide leadership on pharmacare, health care, so we could continue to have universally accessible health care. We need to raise the level of respect between parliamentarians, between the member of parliament and those they represent. People are not scary. People have different ideas, sometimes different than our own, but it is our responsibility as leaders to listen to those peoples and help them achieve their wishes and dreams. Governance is all about putting citizens' hard-earned tax dollars to work for them, and an MP's job is in part to make sure that their residents get their fair share. Our riding deserves the care and attention that only a full-time MP with real roots in the Simcoe-Grey community can give. I have 17 municipal years of experience politically. I have a good on-the-ground knowledge of the practical things that will help our communities, and I've spent a great deal of time making sure that rural health care, educational opportunities for our kids, and ensuring the needs of rural Ontario are being met. Please remember, we have committed to investing in Canada, we've committed to investing in young people, and we're committed to putting more money in the pockets of middle-class Canadians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Our final speaker of the day is JoAnne Fleming of the Green Party.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here in Beaton and to share the values and vision that the Green Party has for this riding and for Canada. I've been living in this riding, and in Collingwood in particular, since 1998. The reason that I'm running for the Green Party is because I am very deeply concerned about the future for our children. My children, your children, all children in Canada. That's why I'm running. I have rural roots. I grew up on a farm south of London, Ontario, and Dad was my mentor. He was a person who took me to the woods. We walked the fields, we chased the cows, we harvested the grain, and I really do have those strong rural roots, which I reconnected with at your Beaton Fair just recently. It was wonderful to be at your country fair. My mother was also one of those farm women who was one of those prize winners winning the sweepstakes at the country fair. The whole value of local food, prepared food, healthy food. I've been a small business owner as a landscape architect with my own office, and more recently as an environmental speaker. When I speak, I am speaking about the importance of environmental integrity and what the many issues are. I'm also talking about alternatives to consumerism. As a speaker, I'm also a writer. I am researching and writing about articles on health, on environmental justice issues, and all of the things that are involved in making quality of life better in this riding and in our country and on our planet, because no one person is an island. We're all totally interconnected in whatever decisions are being made. I'm using a theme in my campaign that change is inevitable, positive change is chosen. And Elizabeth May, as the leader of the Green Party, has been a very outspoken advocate of the need for sustainable, wise change. We are offering sensible solutions for a sustainable economy. And as a Green MP, first of all, I am accountable to you. We do not have a whip vote in which we must vote according to our leader, though it would be difficult not to imagine voting with Elizabeth, but we do not have to vote to our leader. We vote first for our constituents. Our party will act on climate change. And in 2007, I was actually at the United Nations moderating a workshop on climate change with non-government organizations. Part of our policy also is to end poverty in Canada with a guaranteed minimum wage. Everyone likes to eat, everyone must eat, and we want to promote much more self-sufficiency and local food safety and food security. So these are just a few of the things that the Green Party stands for and the kinds of things that I want to bring to this riding. Change, as I said, is inevitable, but there is great change happening. We are now going through a sustainability revolution that will rival the agricultural and industrial revolutions and how it will transform our society. This is a quote from the Department of Trade and Industry, London. We need a leader in this area. We need a leader in Ottawa who is going to ensure that we have sustainable principles and practices that are applied to every policy that is created. Every policy must be based on an evaluation of the triple bottom line of what is the environmental impact, what is the social people impact, and what is the economic impact. Triple bottom line, environmental, social, and economic. By having a plan that is addressing those three issues and balancing those issues, not just balancing the profits for a very few, we can move towards a sustainable economy. When we're moving towards a sustainable economy, we have a choice. We can choose to be part of the solution as we move this area towards more sustainable policies and practices, or we can be part of the problem. Thank you very much.
Haven't had to do much in the way of moderating today. Everyone's been right on time. Thank you, JoAnne. So at this point in the program, what I'm going to do is ask whoever would like to ask a question of the candidates to form a line along this aisle, please, and we will start accepting questions, if there is any. The candidates will then have 2 minutes to speak to the question. You may ask your question directly to whichever candidate or candidates you would like to hear from. And at 2 minutes promptly, the microphone will be cut in the, to be fair and to make sure that everyone's questions and answers can be heard. So our first question, please.
The first question is, I guess, for all the candidates, but I'd like Kellie Leitch to start off with, and I'd like the others to follow up on her response. Dr. Kellie Leitch, I take it from your resume and your title, you've taken quite a few science courses in your time, and you can appreciate the importance of science, enabling us to make better decisions, moving us forward, and so on. So my question to you is, why has the government muzzled our government scientists? I'm not quite finished yet, because my sense is they've become very frustrated. There's a lot of anxiety, and I know a lot of them have left the country, left their work. And I've also been abroad recently, and I was a little surprised that, not surprised, but a lot of people look at Canada now and some of its policies, in particular with regards to the scientific community, and they're asking, why is Canada doing this? So can you tell me what the rationale is? Thank you.
So the scientists with the Government of Canada have published over 4,000 publications for yourselves as Canadians who are seen by the world. The Canadian government supports scientists, particularly new young scientists. So whether it be the Banting Scholarships or the Vanier Scholarships, which you may or may not know about, established by Minister Flaherty in successive budgets, have brought literally the highest quality scientists in the world to this country to work and to have a great experience. I work with many of those people. I did in the past. I was a professor at the University of Toronto, the University of Western Ontario, and now I'm at the University of Ottawa. It's exceptionally important we support these individuals, Vanier and Banting scholarships. In addition to that, we provide some of the most substantive funding to the granting councils of Canada that is seen and not even met by other G7 countries. So, General Canada, the Canadian Foundation of Innovation, Canadian Health Research Foundation, SHIRT or NSERC. These are all Canada's granting councils that receive year after year augmentations in funding so that Canadian scientists working at universities, colleges, and also in government can do outstanding work. Canadians have an amazing track record, whether it be right here in this riding where Banting and Best discovered insulin that we can be proud of as a nation, or whether it be our contributions in genomics, or whether in orthopedics, my own field, where some of the leaders in the world have trained at sick kids and do outstanding research. The Canadian government continues to support them. We will continue to do so into the future. It's something that's a proud legacy for Canadians. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. I did mention in my opening remarks that we would be unmuzzling scientists, but I'll give you an example of another initiative, and that is to establish the role of a chief science officer that will report directly to Parliament so that all the information that's generated by scientists can be given unfettered to people that are making decisions on our behalf. And another example is the ELA, which is the Experimental Lake Area. This government has walked away from it. The Experimental Lake Area was actually funded by the federal government and actually was responsible for such things as the amount of phosphates in detergents that end up in your rivers and lakes. So those are things that this government has taken away from you and decided that other people should have to fund those things. And I think it's important for us to understand, and I think all of us would be wanting our government scientists to be able to provide their information to all members of Parliament, but also the public, so they could make their decisions on their own. Thank you very much.
Well, I first of all like to thank Kellie Leitch for not answering the question. The reason the federal government has made the scientists shut up is because for oil companies to run pipelines, they have to contravene just about every environmental act that we have. The Navigable Water Act, you have to apply to run a pipeline across a river. That's no good for the pipeline industry because that's going to cost them money. Then you got to do research. So we got to scrap that. By quieting the scientists, they have virtually said to Canadians, the environment does not count. The NDP is going to take that off the scientists. We are not going to allow any project to go without scientific input, which is critical. We are going to open up all the labs that they shut down. They shut down a laboratory that studies water. These are the guys that came up with the fact that acid rain is destroying our water. What does they do? They shut it down. It cost them $2 million a year to fund this particular laboratory, and it's costing them $50 million to shut it down. And there's only one reason for it, because the big corporations control our government. It's time that we take it back.
Science funded by the federal government is science that is not influenced or not nearly as heavily influenced by vested interests from industry. Having science funded by a government is what we as Canadians need, and the science that we had in this country was highly esteemed around the world. Thousands of scientists in Canada have been fired in the last 10 years. Thousands. Thousands in agriculture, in forestry, in fisheries, and in oceans. The loss cannot be calculated. Furthermore, the Conservative government has also made it its business to destroy the evidence of this science. Tens of thousands of documents have been destroyed, and so we will no longer ever have access to this science that we've already paid for. 16 scientific libraries have been closed. The books destroyed, never again available. Science is what our future depends upon. Science that is research that's carefully designed, research that is vetted by other scientists and reviewed and peer-reviewed and goes through the process. This is science that we need. We face incredible challenges in this country and on this planet with the impacts of climate change and pollution and other things that we don't even know about yet. And we don't even have departments that can actually explore these and come up with solutions. So the muzzling of scientists is just a further dimension that the scientists that we have left cannot even speak. They cannot speak to one another. They cannot answer questions when they attend a scientific conference or forum. If any questions from the floor, must. Okay, thank you.
In this format, obviously, when things are brought up that other candidates might want to rebut to, we don't have that opportunity. Which is kind of a disadvantage to make sure in the interest of transparency and fairness that everything is spoken to. So perhaps after, when you do have your meet and greet with your candidates following the Q&A, you can ask them specifically for information on some of the things that are being brought up today. Our next question, please. Yes.
Could you stand over there so you can see when the time is up? Because I can't see what
Absolutely. I will make it more available, the timing. Yes. Yes.
My question is Beaton.
Yes, could you give your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Craig Jordan from Beaton. Anyways, long story short, I would like to ask the Liberal candidate. They have said publicly that they're going to run a deficit budget for 3 years, at least 3 years. And I was going to ask them, they're saying in their platform is that they're going to take money from the rich and give it to the poor. And I want to know what the debt ceiling or what level of income will that be cut off at? 120,000, 140,000, 150,000? How much money do you make before you start taking from the rich and giving to the poor? Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. The plan is to establish a new tax rate for those that make $200,000 or more. So I think that answers your question most directly. With regard to being honest about the budget, we're being honest about where we're at. Understand this is a government that inherited from a previous Liberal government a surplus, turned those into deficits, added $150 billion of debt to the national debt, and the Liberals are looking at a plan that is reasonable, that's been costed, that has been examined by others to show that it is actually a legitimate plan, and we're willing to move forward on it. But what we're really about is being honest with people, and we're being honest about the budget. We're being honest about the investments that need to be made.
Thank you. Next question.
Yes, my name is Brian Nemagon, and I'd like to ask Dr. Leitch, what would you do to make sure that our farmers are supported?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I guess there's a number of things. The first thing that we've done, just announced in the most recent budget, was increase the capital gains allowance to $1 million. Now that will allow farmers in this region both to manage for retirement, but also to plan transitions to the younger farmers that are, our generations in this region. That's the first. The second is we have negotiated and worked with the provinces to create Growing Forward 2, a series of investments, whether that be on the research side or direct investment in farms, or supporting young farmers to enter into farming and to be able to support themselves with low interest loans, so that we can have a rich, vibrant farming community here. But one of the things I would encourage everyone to do, most importantly in this area, is just buy local. Buy from our farmers, whether it be the apple farmers in the northern part of this riding, or people that are growing things here in the south. Making sure you buy local supports our local economy, supports our local farmers, and make sure we have an opportunity in the future. We are exceptionally privileged here in Canada. Canadian farmers feed Canadians, and we also feed the world. And whether it be what we're doing here locally, or what we're doing as a government, creating opportunities with free trade deals across the globe, providing literally hundreds of millions of new customers for Canadian farmers so they can grow their farming opportunities. These are the things we're focused on, both local, international, creating opportunity for farmers, and also making sure that those that are transitioning into retirement have a safe and secure retirement in the future. Thank you very much.
Next question, please state your name.
Bob Moss from Allison. My question is for Kellie Leitch. How can we keep jobs in our area?
Well, I think we keep jobs in this area by making sure a Conservative government is re-elected. We are very fortunate here that because of the plan that has been put in place, first by Jim Flaherty and now continued by our government, training, lower taxes, and trade. These are the things that are key components to making sure that we can create jobs in this area. So trade, as I just mentioned, increasing the markets that we have, so that Canadian farmers, but also here locally. The Honda plant, I'm proud to say, because of the Canada-Europe trade agreement, now will be actually building the cars that are exported to Europe, hundreds of cars every year, an increase and an opportunity for job creation. But it's also about making sure locally people have the skills to fill jobs. And so that whether that be investments in breaking down barriers or tracks, other organizations right here locally, making sure young Canadians have the skills they need to enter jobs. And then finally, as I say, tax cuts. We want individuals, including businesses, to have money back in their pockets. We've made a commitment to lower the small business tax rate from 11 to 9%. We know that those great business owners will reinvest in their companies, hiring more individuals so that we can grow the economy locally. And I'm delighted that we're doing that right here in this area. As Minister of Status of Women, I've also championed women entrepreneurs, a new $700 million investment in women entrepreneurs across the country so that they can grow their businesses right here in our local area. We had over 280 women out to Alliston for our latest event, or those across the country. These women are running great companies. In fact, Amos is here today. They're running great companies, making sure that individuals here in this riding are employed, but also making sure Canadians are employed across the country. So thank you very much.
Is there any other candidate that wanted to speak to that? As there's only 3 questions left, and we do still have a full hour of questions that we can take. Would any of the other candidates like to speak to job creation in Simcoe-Grey?
Yeah, thanks very much. I just wanted to comment. We are fortunate, and I talked about infrastructure investment prior. Canada needs to invest more in its infrastructure. It does help private sector jobs be created in our community. In fact, when I left as mayor, the Honda announced an $800 million investment in our local plant. The province of Ontario came through with a contribution to that in many millions of dollars. And unfortunately, our federal government didn't think it was worth any money to support that investment of a private sector. And I think we have to show some support of our local businesses. We have to show that we care about the jobs they create. And certainly, in my mind, we have some good examples across the riding of some businesses that need to be supported. Liberal government supports small and medium-sized business. We know that it drives the local economy, and we know that it's important to do that. It creates jobs, and we're more than happy to help all businesses move ahead, because it's easier to help grow an existing business than it is to find a new one. So on behalf of the Liberal Party, I'd like to say we are very committed to creating jobs. We've actually decided that we would like to create up to 40,000 young jobs each year, because we think it's important. Youth unemployment is triple the average, and we need to invest more in young people in our communities.
I'd like to respond to a couple of answers that were made here. Kellie Leitch says that the Conservative Party is all for helping farmers, but yet the Conservative Party will not tell the public what is in the TPP. If the TPP goes through as it is written, it's going to devastate our farmers, and especially our dairy industry. So once again, the Conservatives don't tell the whole story. Kellie Leitch says that she is helping entrepreneurs in this riding. There was a program in this riding that Burns put on that was supported by the provincial and federal government. My wife participated in it, and she was even told directly by Kellie Leitch that she supports this program 100%. The Wynne government pulled their funding. Directly after that, the federal government pulled their funding. Now they won't, I believe it's the people that are in the program now, once they're done, that program is killed. That created entrepreneurs in this riding. And they did not get the support from the federal government to take it over. So I don't know how she says she supports that. You know, she says she supports women's rights. But yet, when the NDP put legislation on the floor to have a national policy on violence against women, she voted against it. When the Conservative government decided to cut funding to grassroots women's organizations that support or fight for the equality of women, she supported it. So as the person for the status of women, how is she supporting women? Why don't they tell the truth? They've cut funding in just about every department. They were in the black this year because they left $1.1 billion in the Indian Affairs Department, $1 billion in the Veterans Departments that the veterans needed. Instead of giving them that money, they decided we should cut all the Veterans Affairs offices, make it harder for veterans to get benefits through a 1-800 number, cut their funding.
The Green Party, as I've mentioned, supports a sustainability agenda. And a sustainability agenda involves creating as many jobs as possible locally. We want people to live locally, we want people to work locally so that they are not increasing their carbon footprint by having to commute to Toronto. We are wanting them to identify employment opportunities for themselves and with government help in ways such as education and training, by identifying what goods and services do your neighbors need. The more we focus on growing our local economy instead of thinking it's only about the global economy, the stronger we will be as local communities. The whole idea of shopping local is absolutely critical to making this possible. I'm sorry, but the Costco run is not building your community. You will spend more money when you go to Costco because you will see far more things to buy, so you're not really saving money, but you are depriving the local businesses of your money, which will continue to circulate in your communities. The whole idea of sustainable business, sustainable jobs, has to happen here with the encouragement of government programs that educate, that build skills, and that grow the strength of our communities so that we are caring and looking after one another. We need to be thinking more in terms of living locally, being good neighbors to one another, and providing the goods and services that our neighbors need. And that way we are building a stronger economy. Thank you.
Next question, please.
My name is Charlie Horn, and I'd like to ask Kellie Leitch a question, please. What will your party do to support the seniors? Thank you.
So we've been very clear with respect to our approach to seniors, making sure that security in their finances and their, as you grow older, are secured. So what are those components? First, income splitting for seniors. Second, an augmentation of the tax-free savings account to $10,000. Third, an augmentation, the largest in the last 25 years, of the OAS, the Old Age Security, as well as the Government Income Supplement. And then finally, making sure that the age credit was adjusted, taking more than 400,000 seniors off the tax rolls altogether. We're very focused on making sure the money is back in your pocket so you can make choices in the future for your fiscal security. It's not for us to choose, it is for you to choose going forward. So that is our plan with regards to for seniors, in addition to the numerous programs that we provide through the Government of Canada. Thank you very much.
Speak to that one. You know, I find it amazing what Kellie just said. A couple of years ago in the House, it was brought forward that they should increase the Canada pension. The Conservative government shot it down. All of a sudden it's an election year and we're going to give all this money to seniors. It's amazing, isn't it? They do this all the time. The NDP has basically said, we are going to allow seniors to split income. This is something that they need. We're going to increase Canada pension. We're going to increase the supplement. We are going to increase the funding for home care, which the Conservatives have not mentioned, and which they've done cutbacks in health care, so that program pretty well got washed up. You know, it's about time to start looking at the past, what these governments have done for you, and start looking into the future to governments that have actually taken care of their citizens. The NDP has a track record of being able to balance budgets and bring in social programs. Look at healthcare. We brought that in with a big fight. Now they're taking it away from us by undercutting it. The Liberals did this starting with Paul Martin. He took something like, I think it was $6 billion out of healthcare to balance his books. The Conservatives have done the same thing. They're taking money out of social programs to make it look as if they are in the black. But do you hear them saying, we're going to stop giving corporations our tax dollars to create invisible jobs? You never hear that from the Liberals or the Conservatives. It's about time we stop supporting the rich and use that money to pay for our necessities that people need in this country. The NDP's not going to raise your taxes. We're going to raise the taxes on corporations and the rich. And I don't know anybody in here who makes $200,000 a year, so I don't know where Justin Trudeau figures the rich part starts. You know, the Conservatives saying they're going to increase the interest-free account by $10,000. Who's got it?
Just speaking to our platform, as mentioned earlier, we are rolling back the age requirement for the OAS and GIS, the Ontario Old Age Security and Guaranteed Income Supplement to 65 from 67. We're looking at an immediate increase of 10% to both of those to help the most vulnerable seniors. We're looking at working, and this is something you don't hear a lot about in the recent history, but we're looking at working with provinces and territories to increase CPP. We do that on a number of issues across the wide spectrum. It's about working together to resolve people's issues. And we're looking at establishing a seniors price index as well, because we understand that the goods and services that seniors purchase are largely, for a large part, more expensive than those purchased by the general population. So we have a number of things that we're doing, and I did mention that we talked about investing in infrastructure, and a significant portion of that is being directed to creating affordable seniors housing. Thank you.
The Green Party is very, very interested and concerned in our seniors, those over 65 now becoming a larger portion of the population than those under 15 years of age. It's certainly a significant group whose needs must be addressed. My husband recently passed away, so I've had very close contact with the healthcare industry, and I have to say, first of all, it is remarkable what our healthcare systems do offer us. Yes, there is need for more, but we do receive a great deal. The Green Party wants to ensure that there is affordable, predictable home care support so that people can stay in their homes as long as possible. The Green Party wants to assure a guaranteed and livable income for all so that no senior lives in poverty. We want to ensure a comprehensive pharmacare system across the board. We also want to establish a national dementia strategy. Dementia with Alzheimer's and so on are common, far too common as we age, and almost all of us have had some contact with people struggling with those issues and the people struggling to care for those people. So that's a big part of what the Green Party offers. The Green Party also offers a pension protection plan, because there are many pensions that I'm learning about that are being threatened, that are going to be terminated. And when you have worked your entire life and suddenly discover that your pension is being cut severely or possibly even eliminated, where does one possibly turn? Also the expansion of CPP. The Green Party believes that our seniors have a great deal to offer our communities yet, and we want to work together to make sure that you can continue to share your talents and that we can work together to ensure these last years of seniors' lives, including mine, are the best they can be. And we keep hearing about those golden years, and we want to make them more golden.
Our next question, please.
My name's JoAnne Fleming, and I live in Alliston. First of all, I'd like to thank all the candidates that are here. I don't know where they get the guts to run. It's very challenging. And you know, as I was waiting in line, I kept thinking, every time somebody talked, I had a different question. You know, years ago when my husband and I were so-called entrepreneurs, we thought we did our duty by voting. We had no idea what we were voting for, but we voted. And you know, now I'm more confused than ever about who I'll vote for. It seems like the more you know, the less you know. And I find it very confusing. And this is for you, Dr. Leitch. I watch a lot of politics, and I find the conservatives have these bit answers. They're all the same. They don't ever change, and I find you to be the same. Now, what I want to know is it true that the conservatives are planning to take billions of dollars out of the health care? Yes or no? That's all I want to know. I don't want to hear anything other than yes or no.
Absolutely not. So
This is...
Healthcare, I answered your question. Healthcare in this country is the responsibility of the provinces.
We know that.
There is a health transfer, and the federal Conservative government has put that on a 6% escalator year on year till 2016, and then an escalator of 4% year on year to 2024. So we've made that commitment in budgets. We planned for it till 2024, so an increase every year until 2024 of a healthcare transfer to each province. In this province, though, just so we're clear, last year we transferred $735 million to the province of Ontario, but only $600 million of that ended up in healthcare. And I can tell you as a physician, that's inappropriate. We expect the Liberal Wynne government to take the money we provided them for health and place it into healthcare facilities so that you receive the care you deserve. So whether that be making sure that people in the north part of this riding get a new hospital in Collingwood, or whether the Stevenson Memorial gets more funding, I'd like to ask Kathleen Wynne and the Liberal government of Ontario, where is that $135 million that should be put into healthcare for the people of this province? You deserve it. You're a patient. Your family deserves to be taken care of. Where is that money?
That's what I think about all levels of government. Where is the money? Where's the accountability?
So our accountability, ma'am, our accountability is in the federal transfer, and those numbers are published every year, and you'll see that our transfer to the provinces year on year has been augmented. We do that with the health transfer tax as well as the social transfer tax, and that's built into our budgets till 2024.
Is Ontario the only one that has not spent their money?
I can't speak to that. I just know the Ontario numbers. What I do know is that the number from the federal government is a transfer, is increased every year.
Thank you.
Next question, please. Sure, I'm sorry.
I think it picks up on a theme that I've heard a lot as a mayor in a municipality. I'm tired of other levels of government blaming everybody else for issues that are in their community. I'm just heard it again, blaming the province for healthcare issues that are out there. It takes all levels of government working together. This is not the appropriate venue. If Ms. Leitch has a disagreement with the province of Ontario, she should take it up with the province of Ontario. In terms of cutting healthcare transfers, we just heard that you're cutting healthcare transfers in your response. You're saying that 6% is coming and then you're moving it to 4%. Like, healthcare costs aren't going down, they're going up. And they require federal leadership to help the provinces move ahead. Sorry, I gave you opportunity to speak, and now I'm speaking. This is exactly the kind of respect that we've lost between parliamentarians and the people they represent. We know that costs are going up in healthcare, and it is going to require all levels of government to work together in order to advance that. As a municipal leader, I worked with the province of Ontario to understand that both Collingwood Hospital and Stevenson Hospital deserved to be invested in because rural healthcare is important, and we need to get behind it. Thank you very much.
You know, the one thing I find amazing about Kellie's statement is that, as everybody knows, the Harper government already stated they're going to cut healthcare by $36 billion in 2 years. So if they're going to cut it by $36 billion, what are their 6 and 4% rated on? You know, healthcare is an essential social service. And addressing the one part of that lady's question is, the one thing Canadians do not do, and this is what the Liberals and the Conservatives know, you don't look at a party's DNA, you don't look at what they have done in the past. And I guarantee you, if you look into the Liberals' past, you are going to see cuts from healthcare. If you look into the Conservatives' past, you are going to see cuts from healthcare. You're going to see cuts from all types of social programming. This is what they do to balance budgets. They don't increase the taxes on the rich or the corporations. They cut healthcare, they cut social programs. And this is a known fact. Just look into your past. and see which political party provincially has never done that. And that's your NDP or former CCF. We care about health care. We invented it. Why would we make cuts to it?
Next question, please. Thank you for your patience with your little one.
Thank her. As someone who works in healthcare, I guess, and the comment from the last one is, it would be nice if this Prime Minister actually sat down and talked to the provinces. But that's not what the question is. The question is, our current electoral system is literally broken, with only 60% of people voting. And it's a first past the post system, and I mean, winner takes all is another word for it. And so literally, if you don't vote for the winner, your vote literally is actually wasted. So that results in only 60% of the population voting. Basically, I was just wondering from all the candidates, what will you do to make this system more proportional so that if you get 39% of the vote, you get 39% of the seats in the House of Commons to represent us? Because as a scientist, I do understand research, and I know that the research says that proportional systems result in more economic equality, more gender equity, better environmental performance, economic growth, and a better democracy overall. Thank you.
Tom Mulcair and the NDP party has already stated, if we are elected, within our mandate, we are going to bring in proportional representation. The form that takes has still got to be studied because there's still several different types out there, and we want to have the best one for Canadians. It is absurd for any political party to rule a country with 37% of the vote, when another party would get 42% of the popular vote and not have enough seats. This system does not work, it's not fair, and it's not equitable to our economy. The whole principle of governing is being able to get along. There is no cooperation, or very little cooperation, between the political parties in this country, and it's time for change. We have to have dialogue between all provinces, all political parties, all municipalities to make this a better country. Proportional voting creates that.
I have talked to many, many people as I knock on doors during this campaign, and one of the biggest emotions that I see is fear. It is fear of who do I vote for? The ABC, anybody but. Who do I vote for? How do I make my vote count? A democratic vote system is supposed to be about voting for who you want. People have fought hard. Millions have lost their lives voting for us to have the opportunity to place a democratic vote. And the current system does not allow that. The Green Party, whether as part of a coalition or as the lead, is committed to introducing proportional representation in our voting system. We need to have more people represented in Parliament and the more diverse interests of this incredibly diverse population that is this riding and that is this country. Proportional representation has got to be a very high priority in order to have people be able to, first of all, have the privilege, the opportunity, and the faith that they can truly vote for what they want and who they want, and it has a place and they will be represented. Thank you.
We have a whole platform piece with regard to changing the way government operates. And we're certainly wanting to work with all the parties after the next election to make sure that this is the last election that will be decided by first past the post. So we are committed to electoral reform. We're committed to working, again, and you'll hear this a lot from the Liberal Party, working together with the other parliamentarians that are there and the other levels of government to make sure whatever transformation that we make with regard to government is going to be something that we can all move forward together. So thanks very much.
We continue to support the Westminster that be term limits or whether that be making sure that individuals for the Senate are elected. So, no, and as I said, we support the Westminster system. Thank you very much.
Next question, please.
John Dolliner from Thornton. My question is, will any of your parties bring back the long survey? Thank you.
JoAnne,
The Green Party is absolutely committed to bringing back the long census. A government, the people who are in our government, the people who work behind our elected representatives must know who we're working for. Who are the people that need health care? What are the demographics? What are the financial resources of people who will need health care? How many children are going to be coming into the school system? Where are they living? These are demographics that are needed for comprehensive planning, and only the detailed census can give us that data. It is absolutely incomprehensible why it would be canceled. Yes, if you get stuck filling out one of those forms, it's tedious and it's a pain, I know. However, this is for the future of our country, and if we don't have data, as we've said before, if we don't have data, if we don't have science, we can't make science-based policies or data-based policies. It must be returned, and the Green Party will have that as a very high priority.
The other candidates speak to that as well, but I just wanted to let you know today that the Times has extended a very extensive survey to each of the candidates here today, and that was one of the questions. So you will be able to hear more to the answer to that question in the Times next week. David?
The NDP is 100% for bringing back the long-form census. Data that is in that census is required for not only government, but for organizations to use it so that they are going down the right road to be able to supply support to our citizens. Without that, you don't know how many kids are going into the school system. You don't even know for sure what the age of the population is. You know, these are all criteria that we need for research to develop programs that are going to help Canadians. The Conservatives government scrapped that at the same time they told scientists to be quiet, and you have to stand back and wonder why they would do things like this.
My answer will be very simple. The Liberal government is committed to bringing back the long-form census.
So the federal government believes in making sure that we have reliable, accurate data. The short-form census provides that data that the government requires, and also for making decisions with respect to policy. The one thing that we actually do not agree with is that individuals who don't finish the long-form census are threatened with legal action for refusing to reveal sensitive personal information. By way of example, the government of Canada doesn't need to know how long you bathed your child for. That is personal sensitive information parents don't want to reveal. So we're very focused on continuing to collect data, as we should. There are a series of surveys that Statistics Canada will continue to provide, but not to be putting people in a circumstance where they're threatened with legal action because they refuse to give answers to personal sensitive information that the government does not require. Thank you.
Can we have the next question, please?
Thank you. My name is Lorraine Leslie, and this is addressed to all the candidates. I take a look around the room and I see that the age demographic is politely putting it 50 plus into retirement years. My question, first of all, is to Dr. Leitch. Related to the status of women, how much money, how much is available in the account for status of women to help entrepreneurs in today and moving forward? The second part of that question is, when I visited with you, you mentioned that we could go to the Status of Women website to fill out for grants for small business. And when I went to the site, it was restricted to women that were facing, have gone through violence, and women who are of Aboriginal descent. What about the rest of us that have worked hard? I've been an entrepreneur for over 40 years, and I continue to struggle and put myself out there, and you know that I am a hard worker and a mentor. So I address the candidates. Kellie, Ms. Leitch, or Dr. Leitch, I'd like to know your response to this question. I'd like to know from the other candidates, how would you change this for the status of women, and where do you stand on moving forward with the status of women?
Great, so thank you very much for the question. In this year's budget, Economic Action Plan 2015, $700 million was allocated to women entrepreneurs through the Business Development Bank of Canada. So not through Status of Women Canada, but through the Business Development Bank of Canada. Status of Women Canada has 3 types of programming. One is to support ending violence against women and girls. The second is for economic security. And the third is about women in leadership roles. That funding, different than what was mentioned before from this podium by another candidate, has actually been augmented since 2006. And we fund local community projects in those areas, not businesses. I know that's what many women entrepreneurs would like us to do, but not businesses, but local community projects to provide skills to women going forward in the future. So BDC, funding for women entrepreneurs, programming through Status of Women Canada, and then I think you raised a third issue. Oh yes, you had just asked about where Status of Women was focused. Happy to work with yourself or any other women's organizations in this area on specific funding that could be allocated through those 3 pillars that Status of Women supports. Thank you.
The Green Party recognizes that women are starting far more businesses than men these days in their efforts to become more self-sufficient, and the support that is needed by these women is great. The opportunities for youth are also a huge part of the platform for the Green Party. Whereas the youth look for jobs and don't find them in the usual places so much anymore, the need for them to become entrepreneurs is huge. As women, youth entrepreneurs, once again, the support that's needed so they can have jobs, create their own jobs, and also the need for partnerships. We need mentorships. We need people who are in the communities, both men and women, to offer mentorship to young men, young women, mature men, mature women, who are wanting to establish businesses and grow their businesses. I spoke to one person whose husband was not able to get help when he needed it to establish his business because he didn't qualify for the programs because he had registered the name of his business. And those kinds of barriers to growing a business, establishing a business, and running it in an efficient way are there. And as the Green Party, we need to work together, and we have programs that we want to offer that make sure that people have a lot more opportunity to be able to create and grow small businesses. We want to reduce the amount of paperwork that's required for them to run their businesses, so it's not nearly as tedious to be able to run their businesses. And when it comes to women, we've got to give them the support they need to ensure their independence. Thank you.
On the status of women?
When it comes to the status of women, like, you have to look at everything when it comes to entrepreneurship and businesses, small businesses. I was recently talking to an individual at the door who is an entrepreneur, has a small business, applied for a grant to help his business, and he was finally told his business wasn't big enough to get a grant. He didn't make $150,000 a year, so he is ineligible. The NDP firmly believes that you have to support small businesses. No matter how much money they make, they're the future of Canada. It doesn't matter if they're run by females or males. A small business is a small business. Not like Justin Trudeau, who openly stated that small businesses are just an opening for rich people to get tax breaks. Well, that's not our attitude. Our attitude is small businesses built this country. We have to support small businesses.
Second comment, just based on social programs, and especially when we talk about supporting different groups that are supporting people that are in distress in our communities. We're not, a Liberal Party is not bent by ideological motives with regard to who they're going to support and who they're not. When we talk about businesses and small businesses in our community, we have announced that we will be investing in business incubators. This responds directly to communities that have come to us. And in fact, the community of Collingwood has an economic development strategy that wanted business incubators to be supported in their community in order to help small businesses get off the ground. And we're certainly listening to communities, listening to municipalities, and trying to support those things that are required in each of those communities.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Good afternoon, Craig Jordan again. I would like to ask the Liberal leader again, how come when I got a phone call from my brother some 37, 35 years ago, there was 19% interest rates going on. And I remember my brother telling me that he couldn't afford his mortgage. And the banks are charging 22% at the head. And I'm going like, what do we expect of a Liberal government that comes up and says, we're going to run a deficit again? I don't see how this will work in the economy we have right now. And what I fear the most is we have a Liberal government right now in the provincial realm that doesn't listen to the public electorate. Like they're saying, this is the sex ed education that we're going to force upon your child. And I say, I don't think so. And I've heard from teachers that when they do bring this topic up or bring topics up to the kids. I know, I'm talking.
Can you ask a question?
I'm talking, yes, the question is, why don't we have a system that listens to the electorate, like listens to them, that says they don't like this situation that's gone on and something has been forced upon them. And that's what's bothering me more than anything. This stuff's been forced upon us.
So your question is there a feedback system?
Yeah, a feedback system in the parliamentary council, because I don't see how anybody here can actually say anything to anybody and not get heard.
Okay.
I want to be heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
As mentioned earlier, we did put forward a policy piece from the Liberal government that is directed to open and more transparent government and having people participate more directly in the decisions that affect them on a daily basis. And that is in fact in place. I don't know if you wanted the answer to the question. He's back now.
I'm back.
Okay. So we are, and you've heard that a number of times, and certainly I don't speak for the leader. I know you wanted to ask that question to the leader, but I'm certainly open to saying, listen, how I've conducted myself as a municipal leader and as a person that's been in politics has always been about listening to people, listening to their ideas, and helping those to shape the way forward. I think we always get a better decision when we all work together, whether it be different levels of government or different levels of government in the public. It's all about working together and working towards solutions, and certainly that's what we're about.
Thank
You know, to answer your question, the biggest question is this. You are the people that decides who is going to represent you in Ottawa. I personally believe, and I was always taught when I vote for the person who's going to represent me. See, I'm very fortunate. I don't have any political experience. I've never been in political office like two of the people sitting here. I am not committed to having to follow what the party line says. I am in a party where we have free vote, where if I disagree with a policy, I can say so. I feel that a representative of people puts the concerns of the people that voted for him first, his party second. I live by that conviction. I believe that if something is going to be bad for the people of Simcoe-Grey, it is my duty to stand up and say no. I am not tied to a party whip. The NDP does not have one. All our policies are made from grassroots organizations, just like people like you, people like me. They're based on historical and scientific fact. Therefore, they work. I have read through the NDP's policies book, and I don't see really anything in there that I can disagree with. But what I do disagree with is a candidate that if he stands up in Ottawa, like we saw with our previous representative in the Conservative Party, and object to something the government is doing, they're squashed, they're booted out of the party. That's unacceptable. You know, we have to elect representatives that are going to fight for you, not for their party.
Next question, please.
Okay. I have many questions. One my wife wanted me to ask was about the proposed cultural barbaric legislation. She wanted to know if there was a statute of limitations on that, because when we got married, she changed her name. She wanted to know if that was barbaric or just stupid. But whatever, that's not my question. That was just a warm-up. So serious here, okay? So, this is about foreign policy. So the quote would be, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." We've now chosen to bomb ISIL. ISIL is bombing Syria. Syria in the last 6 months has killed over 1,800 children with their indiscriminate barrel bombing. Does that put us in the same camp as Syria? And why have we chosen to give up our traditional role as peacekeepers to all of a sudden become warriors?
And who would you like to hear an answer from?
Dr. Leitch first, and then from every other candidate as well in terms of foreign policy.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Just to be very clear, the Barbaric Cultural Practices Act is about making sure that girls aren't forced into marriage early, i.e. when they're children. This is something that Canada has championed at the United Nations to make sure that girls globally do not get put in harm's way. We know when a girl is forced to marry before the age of 16, that she's put in harm's way, both her medical as well as her education opportunities. And as Canadians, I think we all agree that that should not take place. That is what the Act is about, just so that we're all very clear. That we should not allow polygamy in this country, and that we should not allow early forced marriages on girls or boys for that matter. And I think, as I say, I think all Canadians would agree with that. With respect to the issue with ISIS, I mentioned in my opening statement, we have been very clear. We will participate with our allied forces in the region to make sure that ISIS is eliminated. This is a group that literally is beheading and torturing women, is putting children into slavery. This is unacceptable and barbaric. And we as Canadians have always stepped to the plate with our international allies to make sure that these types of individuals are eradicated. So I will be very frank with you. We will continue as a Conservative government to support our allies with respect to Syria and what is going on in that area of the world. We will continue to protect Canadians and support the international coalition to degrade jihadist threats and to stand shoulder to shoulder with our allies in the region to fight this evil. It's that simple. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks very much. With regard to Canada's role, we believe that Canada's role needs to change, that we have lost our way. We are there to mainly be in a humanitarian capacity, but also training troops to support the fight against this group. I just would like to sort of touch on your wife's question a little bit. Canada's been much lauded for its Muskoka initiative with regard to women's and girls' health. One of the things that was sadly not allowed to be part of that was sexual health of those that were victims of war brides, and unfortunately this Conservative government, for ideological reasons, wouldn't support women's sexual health in those particular circumstances. So I find it very interesting now we're talking about wanting a barbaric cultural practices line. It's because we don't agree with this globally, but when we have an opportunity to support globally those individuals that are affected by that, we're not going to fund it. So I find that very interesting.
You know, I find it very interesting that the Conservative government is all for going in and bombing ICs and just what they're doing there. The thing is, you have to look at this. At the end of the Second World War, we took a bunch of people and put them on trial for crimes against humanity, for breaking the Hague Convention, the Geneva Convention, a whole bunch of conventions. One of those conventions state that you cannot, to go into another country and bomb them without their permission is an act of war, and it's not acceptable on the world stage. This is one of the reasons the United Nations does not sanction what the US and their counterparts are doing. This is one of the reasons NATO does not sanction it. We are actually breaking world law by violating serious airspace to drop bombs on people. And as you know, bombs don't distinguish between good people and bad people. I've heard Kellie Leitch say that, how do they frame barbaric cultural acts? You know, Jewish people, when they get their meat, they slit the throat of a cow and let it bleed to death. To me, that's kind of barbaric. You know, it's not very nice to the cow to bleed to death. You know, they don't distinguish it. All they're doing with this is saying that in Canada, this government does not want to accept Muslims. And yet, they just signed a $2 billion arms package with Saudi Arabia that allows women to cover their faces, has no respect for women, does arranged marriages and everything else. On one hand, we don't accept that in Canada, we don't accept it in the world, but we'll sell Saudi Arabia, we'll sell them $2 billion worth of arms. Okay? What is that telling you? They don't give a damn about this stuff. They're using this for fear in this election to make you not think of the things that really count. You know, take a good look at it.
The issues in the Middle East are incredibly complicated, and trying to describe them do not fit in conveniently into 30-second sound bites. One of the things that is never included in a soundbite is part of the reason why these are in this area is in such a state of crisis. Many people do not acknowledge the fact that the climate change and the 10 years of drought are a big contributing factor to what is happening there. If we had 10 years of drought in Simcoe-Grey with no rain for 10 years, where our economy is broken, where we have no way of growing food, we would be on the move too, and it wouldn't be pretty. It's not pretty for these people who are running for their lives with their children, and it's not pretty it wouldn't be pretty for us either. With ISIS, the Green Party will not continue to bomb. The Green Party believes that we must turn to other techniques, including the United Nations, to work together. And if you stop and think about what the needs are of these people, the Conservative Party has said they want to resettle these people back into their own countries. How can you resettle these people back in their own country when they left it because of it being completely desolate and not supporting their lives? We must look at other ways than bombs. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is not the way to live on this planet.
And our final question. Thank you very much, Wendy. I started my career in municipal government back in the mid-70s, and I was one of those people known as an environmentalist. So my question is for all the candidates, and it's related to water. And back in the gold rush stage, gold was the real gold, oil became the black gold, and water's now the blue gold. And we are having our aquifers in Canada mined, and they are taking that water in Olympic-sized swimming pools, containers behind ships across the oceans. We know that they're running out of water in parts of Brazil, Venezuela, California, the Oklahoma water table in Florida area in the southern United States is practically depleted and so on. And I don't think that it is in the best interest of Canada to have our aquifers, when we don't even have potable water for some of our First Nations people, to be mined by a few corporations who stand to make a ton of money. And when our aquifers are depleted, we won't be any different than the people that JoAnne just spoke of, who are going here and there because of climate change and lack of rainfall and lack of safe aquifer water. So I'd like to know what they plan to do, because the World Health Organization, in the book called Blue Gold, written by Maud Barlow, has stated that they wanted water to be a human right. The World Trade Organization wanted it to be a commodity. The World Trade Organization won. So I want to know, what is the Canadian government going to do, no matter what parties are in, to protect our groundwater resources for the people of Canada, because we're bringing more and more people, we have more and more growth, and we are definitely going to need that in the future.
On clean drinking water.
One of the first things the NDP is going to do is enshrine in our Constitution that every Canadian has the right to clean water. That's going to be a constitutional right. We are also immediately going to ban the export of bulk water. I agree with you, water in the very near future is going to be more valuable than gold. And why are we allowing countries to come in here and take it? That is our water, our fresh water, that is our future. And the NDP will do anything and everything to protect that. That includes bringing scientists back to continue to do their studies to make sure that we are not polluting our water. We are going to start making polluters pay, which none of the other parties have addressed. You know, these corporations can pollute our water and they get away with it. Oh, just clean it up. But we have to start charging them big time for doing that polluting. It's our water. We have to protect it.
Water is life, and already wars are being fought over access to water. There are many bodies of water, many rivers of water that fall on national borders, and many of those rivers do not flow when they reach their destination of the sea because so much water has been taken. Those who live downstream no longer have water, and you don't have to look any further than the Colorado River, which during many years there is no water that reaches the sea. Water should be a right. Water that is affordable. We do not want a situation where water is privatized. Water must never be privatized in this country, because when it's privatized, the price goes up and it's no longer accessible. In Bolivia, where they privatized water, there was a riot because people could not afford it anymore. And the person who led the riot was asked why, and he said, "I will either die of thirst or I will die to a bullet to my head." That's why I stood up. We must stand up for the safety and preservation and integrity of our water, that it is safe to drink, and we must have stronger regulation to ensure that it is safe and that it's not leaving the country in bulk. We must restore our municipal water systems so that there is no longer a need for people to perceive that they need to drink bottled water. It takes 1.5 bottles of water to create the plastic bottle to put the water in, for heaven's sake. Why are we using bottled water? Let's put the money every week that you put into bottled water into a fund that's going to improve your infrastructure. We talk about infrastructure all the time and what we need in this municipality. There's a good start. Stop using bottled water and put that money that you would spend on bottled water back into the infrastructure of our communities. You're not investing. You're complaining about paying taxes, but it is money that could be preserving our water and our health.
Thanks very much for the question. For myself here locally, I've been focused primarily on working with Environment Canada so that we do preserve clean drinking water here. So whether that be dealing with phosphorus levels through the Nottawasaga Conservation Society or the Pine River, or making sure that we are dealing with what is happening up on the beach, as you may know, on Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. These are the focuses that I've had. The federal government has expanded our natural park system, and with that comes protection of the waterways that are within them. The largest natural park in the world was created under this government, as well as now an urban park, the Rouge Park in Toronto. We're focused on conservation, and your point's well taken with respect to water overall. We're very fortunate as Canadians. We have some of the largest freshwater basins in the world, and we do need to preserve them.
It's a good question. We're often reminded by our Public Works Department, actually, when we see people drinking bottled water, that their water is as safe, as clean, and they do a great job of it for all our municipalities. Talked a little bit about infrastructure investment early on, and that's about protecting our environment and protecting our waterways as well, as we know that part of the infrastructure a municipality is responsible for is wastewater infrastructure. And that does go into our rivers and streams, and it's important for it to be appropriately dealt with. And the particular infrastructure investment that we're talking about from the Liberal government is making sure that the highest technologies are used, and that would actually help municipalities be able to gain investment in their infrastructure in order to protect our waterways. In our environmental policy, we have significant sections devoted to the Great Lakes and fresh water, and we are about using science-based approach to understand how we protect our water resources. And we talked about that early on in the discussion today. We need to unmuzzle scientists. We need to support those scientific areas that are now being left behind by the Conservative government. And we need to take a better account of how water is being dealt with in this country. So thanks very much for your question, Fran.
This is the final question.
Thank you. I just didn't want to stand too long. My name is Cynthia Stevenson. I've heard some different numbers on money for families. And so the other day I heard that the Liberals were going to take 315,000 children out of poverty. So what is that magic poverty line, and do the parents of those children get dragged along with them out of poverty, and how is that going to happen? I also heard today that $200,000 was going to be the cutoff line, basically for people who are going to get extra taxes to pay for the people who make less money than that. I'm wondering, excuse me, what then is the middle class? If the middle class is going to gain from taxes from the Liberal program, what is the middle class? Do I become middle class because of my income? What is my income going to be middle class? So basically what I'm saying to Mr. MacEachern is the 315,000 children, where are those going to come from? Do the parents get dragged with them? What is poverty? That's the word that people said that wasn't going to be used here today. But what is poverty? What do we consider poverty? What is the magic number for the middle class that will benefit from tax returns? And I'd like answers from you and from the rest of you. What are you going to do for children in particular in this country, or families? Average families in this country. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. There are a lot of numbers going to be thrown around during this election, and I think when we talk about lifting children out of poverty, the Liberal government isn't about a universal child care benefit that gives money to rich hockey players to raise their children. It's about targeted benefits to people that need it most. When we talk about lifting 315,000 kids out of poverty, we're talking about providing a Canada Child benefit for those families that have an annual family income of $150,000 or less, and they will get more in child care support. It will be tax-free, so they won't have the hidden agenda of this government where you're going to be taxed on that money come the spring, so you better be ready for that. So it's targeted, and that's what governments do. They target their support to the people that need it most, and we've determined that that benefit targeted to those people that need it most will lift those people out of poverty. Middle income earners, a rough number, $44,700 to about $80,000 is a middle income earner, and they will benefit from tax reductions with regard to their income tax levels. Again, we'll be reducing those by 7%. People over $200,000, there will be a new tax bracket set up in order to tax those people. And a part of the income that comes from taxing those people will be to pay for the other benefits that I've outlined here. That's what a government does. It looks for ways to support those amongst its own that require support. And that's what a Liberal government will do. It will take and will target those benefits to people that need it most, and that's what we're about.
Thanks very much for the question. The Conservative Party and the Conservative government is focused on making sure that we lower taxes on everyone and provide benefits to everyone, not segregating out Canadians. And I want to be very clear. Every parent in this country deserves to have access to the universal child care benefit. Every parent does. And that's what we're providing. And yes, it is income tested. But what I'm very proud of as well in supporting families is the Children's Fitness Tax Credit. I helped develop and write that. I chaired the expert panel. That Children's Fitness Tax Credit was actually doubled in October of this year, and actually all those children that are of lower income were completely removed from it being a tax credit. It's now a subsidy. We're very focused on making sure Canadian families receive the money they deserve back in their pockets. And whether that's the augmentation of the universal child care benefit, doubling it for families with children under 6, or creating the new one for children 7 to 17, a doubling of the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, the new family tax cut, or things done in the past. The working income benefit created by Jim Flaherty, lauded and told across the globe as being the #1 reason why families have been brought out of poverty, including the children associated with them, or the new National Child Benefit and its associated tax credit. We have, over the course of the last decade, put in place a number of mechanisms, but they are for all Canadians. In fact, overall, about $6,600 per family per year back into your pockets, and that's for every Canadian family, and we're very proud of that.
Child tax benefit, this is a great benefit for people living in poverty. The only problem with it, it is taxed. When the Liberals increased that, or the Conservatives increased it and brought it out, they taxed it. They did not tell these people that the child tax credit is gone. So basically those checks, and it was worked out, a family of 4 with 2 kids, those checks are worth about $13 a piece after taxes, no child tax credit. So that really vent and really help people in poverty. Poverty is something you just can't put a figure at. You can't, anybody who has worked with Bridges Over Poverty will tell you, you can't put a figure at poverty. Most people that live in poverty, I came from poverty. I had a hell of a time fighting my way out. I was lucky enough to get into a skilled trade and make a good living. And I've fought for people in poverty ever since. You can't put a price on it. It's impossible. Most of the people that live in poverty have given up because nobody cares about them. Right now, the Health Center in this riding stated for a single person in this riding just to survive, they have to make a minimum of $16.76 an hour. The NDP put a proposal on the floor, and it's still part of our platform, for a $15 hour minimum wage for federal employees. The Liberal Party supported it. Justin Trudeau was not there for the vote 5 times. Didn't show up for the vote. Conservatives don't want it. As soon as the election was called, Justin Trudeau said, we don't want this because it doesn't affect enough Canadians. But the thing is this, you have to start somewhere. If the federal government minimum wage is $15 an hour, more than likely the provinces will get on board with it. Because we cannot tell what the provinces do with their minimum wage. And how do you like this for being fair with a minimum wage? $12 an hour for the average worker. It's decreased for students. And servers only get about 20% of that taken off because they get tips. If we're going to have a fair wage system, everybody should be making the same. It shouldn't matter what you're doing. Your work is your labor, and that's got value to it. And this is something none of these parties recognize.
JoAnne will give her response, and that will conclude the Q&A portion of this event. So we do invite you to stay and meet your candidates up close and personal at their different information booths. JoAnne, sorry.
Our youth. Our youth are our future, and our youth are struggling in so many ways, whether it's the absence of their parents, the lack of affordable housing, the lack of nutritious food, the lack of opportunity for post-secondary education that is affordable. These are all dimensions of the youth experience that the Green Party wants to raise. The youth lunch programs, so that every child is getting proper food each day so that they actually have the ability to learn, is one of the platforms of the Green Party. A guaranteed minimum income so that no family lives in poverty is another dimension of the Green Party. Education programs that are affordable or free so that they have the opportunity to grow their skills and to be able to be functioning, contributing members of society in which they are making a respectable income rather than a minimum wage. The Green Party also supports the $15 minimum wage, but it doesn't matter if the minimum wage goes up if the cost of housing continues to be outrageous. We want to make much more affordable housing available because the weight of poverty on families, on marriages, is just so huge these days because so many people are struggling. Another dimension of this whole thing is reducing expectations of how much we think we deserve and we are entitled to. There is a balance in all of this. So I'd like to conclude by saying our children are our future, and the Green Party will be supporting our children in 1,000 ways to ensure that they are the leaders of the future in good health and in good mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming today. We hope that you've heard some very valuable information that will help you with your decision on October the 19th. And please utilize your right and privilege to vote. Thank you for coming.